The woodland caribou is an elusive animal. It is rare to catch a glimpse of one in the forest. Woodland caribou are distinct from their cousins, the barren ground caribou, that are often portrayed thundering across the tundra in herds of tens of thousands. The woodland herds are much smaller than barren ground herds. There have never been large numbers of woodland caribou in the West, and as their name suggests, they prefer a forested habitat to the open tundra. Caribou are members of the deer family, the only ones where both male and female have antlers. A set of antlers can weigh 22 to 30 kilograms, and they can grow to a length of 130 centimeters. Antlers are shed and regrown every year. There is much speculation as to the purpose of the antlers' fantastic shape. Caribou are well adapted to northern environments. One adaptation is their large crescent-shaped hooves, which make traveling over snow and bog a little easier. The hooves also make great snow scoops when digging for lichen, but they are a little tricky on ice. Woodland caribou, weighing up to 270 kilograms, are larger than barren ground caribou. The average lifespan of a caribou is 5 years, but they can live to 13 years in the wild. There are 14 woodland caribou herds in Manitoba. Each herd is named for its location or range. Because of the caribou's elusive nature, the size of each herd is only an estimate. At one time, woodland caribou ranged south through the Whiteshell Provincial Park down into Minnesota. Today, you will not find them south of the Winnipeg River. Woodland caribou are a threatened species. In 1984, COSUWIC, the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, classified the woodland caribou of Western Canada as a vulnerable species. In the year 2000, that was changed to threatened. 4 of Manitoba's 14 woodland caribou herds are considered high risk. The Kississing Neosap herd, Waboden herd, Atikiki Barrens herd, and Owl Lake Flintstone herd. 2 serious threats to woodland caribou are increased predation and introduction of the brainworm parasite, both of which may occur from habitat changes. If the forest is burnt or harvested in a way that provides improved habitat for moose or white-tailed deer, those species will move into the area. This will bring more wolves. White-tailed deer will also bring in the deadly brainworm parasite, deadly to caribou and moose, but not to deer. In woodland caribou country, Manitoba Conservation prioritizes caribou over both moose and deer. A third serious threat to caribou is loss of habitat. If forest fires burn a large section of a herd's range, the impacts could be devastating. Before woodland caribou were classified as vulnerable, Manitoba had begun studying the caribou to identify ways to best manage and protect them. In the 1970s, the province started some of the first radio collaring of woodland caribou done anywhere. The information gathered helped managers determine the habitat caribou preferred. This early information was used to establish the route of the first all-weather road on the east side of Lake Winnipeg. Much of the early data collected is being substantiated by today's more technologically advanced research. The Eastern Region Woodland Caribou Management Committee was formed in 1994. It is a diverse group that works together to direct research and make management recommendations that affect woodland caribou in eastern Manitoba. Its aim is to balance the needs of the caribou with those of various resource sectors. The organizations working in partnership on the Management Committee include Broken Head First Nation, Hollow Water First Nation, Black River First Nation, Sag King First Nation, Lac de Bonnet Wildlife Association, Manitoba Model Forest, Tembec Forestry Company, Time to Respect Earth's Ecosystems, Manitoba Transportation, Manitoba Hydro, and Manitoba Conservation. Dr. Vince Crichton, senior scientist with Manitoba Conservation and member of the Management Committee, has studied woodland caribou for more than 30 years.
The biology of woodland caribou, and this includes their numbers, is what contributes to their status as a species at risk. Manitoba has never had a lot of woodland caribou, with numbers ranging from anywhere from a couple dozen in individual herds up to about 1,000. The Owl Lake herd, for example, at the last count had a population that varied somewhere between 65 to 80 animals. Because of these low numbers, woodland caribou are susceptible to things such as increased predation, uncontrolled hunting, diseases that may be introduced onto their range, and for large catastrophic events like habitat fragmentation and fires that occur in the landscape. And I should point out that woodland caribou have a very low reproductive rate, which contributes to their low population numbers. Because of this, woodland caribou have little cushion to absorb a major blow.
In order to find out more about the woodland caribou, its habitat preferences, and what kind of disturbances affect it, the Management Committee is utilizing two research approaches, or knowledge bases. They are traditional ecological knowledge, TEC for short, a form of indigenous knowledge, and academic science and technology. Julie Bartlett, an anthropology student at the University of Winnipeg, has been using TEC to research woodland caribou.
Traditional ecological knowledge, or TEC, is the information that resides within Aboriginal peoples in all their communities. It is the sum total of knowledge that they have gathered through time and is essential to their survival as a people, both in the past, the present, and the future. Traditional knowledge represents generations of experiences and careful observations. Using TEC, I have found some interesting correlations. When you look at maps that show the boundaries of the Boreal Forest and compare it to maps that plot out the places where you could find pictographs and petroglyphs within Manitoba, those sites fall within the boundaries of the Boreal Forest and actually follow the migration lines of caribou as well.
Julie has been hired by the Centre for Forest Interdisciplinary Research for the Caribou TEC project. This project was commissioned by the Caribou Management Committee to gather information about woodland caribou in eastern Manitoba.
The Caribou TEC project is recording traditional and current knowledge of woodland caribou in eastern Manitoba for our educational, archival, and planning purposes. We hope First Nation communities will continue to share their knowledge with us as well as utilize existing information for community land use planning. Our goal is to accurately portray what the elders know and make it available in both Ojibwe and English to the community, schools, universities, government, and industry. We would particularly like to learn from people who are part of the Caribou clan. Lawrence Smith is an elder with the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation.
My clan is Caribou. It's important for me to know that who I am and what I am. Our elders in the past talked about the clan system. Each clan has a responsibility, and my responsibility is to see that the environment in the forest and the bog areas and grasslands, the water, rivers, and lakes, they travel through there because this is where the food and medication is. Caribou clan is, to me, it's important.
Kelly Leavesley is the Regional Wildlife Manager for Manitoba Conservation. In her research, she's using state-of-the-art technology to track caribou in order to understand their habitat. Kelly chairs the Woodland Caribou Management Committee.
Woodland caribou have a low reproductive rate and a very narrow ecological tolerance, so they require special attention when planning and implementing resource developments. Since the early 1980s, the focus of our management and research has been to understand the habitat and range requirements for woodland caribou. Woodland caribou typically use different areas throughout the year, so we need to understand how they use these areas, why they are important, and how these areas change over time. We want to know what habitat types are important for food and cover, so we need to identify where their wintering areas are, where the cratering sites are located, the areas where they dig for food through the snow, and where their loafing sites are located, the rest areas where they regain their strength. We also need to identify where the calving and calf rearing areas are, where the important rutting areas and migration corridors are, and how they use their habitat to escape predators like wolves and bears. As we gather more information about their habitat needs, we get a better picture of what we should and should not do in woodland caribou habitat. The research has provided us with a great deal of information about woodland caribou. For example, we've learned that lichens are a very important food for woodland caribou in winter, but in summer they also eat leaves, shrubs, herbs, mushrooms, and grasses. Summer and winter ranges do not usually overlap. Some herds use traditional migration routes, but others do not. Summer habitat includes open areas and ridges to get away from biting insects. Caribou have a loyalty or fidelity to a particular area for their winter range as well as for their calving areas. They prefer mature coniferous forest habitat for cover and food. Cows disperse by themselves to give birth, and they return to the same calving sites, often an island or an island of trees in a large bog. Calf rearing areas are usually near water, on islands or along shorelines, providing cows and calves an escape from wolves and bears. Woodland caribou are moving all the time, and they use their landscape more than other animals do to avoid predators. When wolves threaten, they disperse widely through the forest, making it harder to find them, or into the water if it is close.
With the help of Manitoba Hydro and Manitoba Model Forest, the committee is using state-of-the-art technology to track the caribou by satellite. Global Positioning System, or GPS collars, are put on the caribou to track their movements. After 1 year, the collar is retrieved. The data stored in the collar's onboard computer is then downloaded to a mapping computer program. Then, the caribou's movements over the year are put onto maps. These maps identify important core areas and migration routes of the herd. They help the committee define management zones. The maps help plan for future use of the forest to ensure adequate habitat is available for woodland caribou. The tough part of the job is finding the caribou and getting the tracking collars on them. Trevor Barker, wildlife technician with Manitoba Conservation, explains the different types of caribou collars.
This collar here is one of the very first collars we've used as an electronic collar. What it is a VHF collar. It has a specific frequency assigned to this collar, and through using antennas and receivers, we can hone in on the animal and track it down quite efficiently. Through that we get herd numbers, herd sizes, calves numbers, and such. This collar here, the much larger one, is the very first GPS collar that we've experimented with. It is the GPS 1000, and with this collar it was necessary to have a laptop computer and a separate modem for this collar to talk to it while it was still on the animal. This collar uses GPS to locate the animal, and it communicates with it 4 times a day, and it tells us where the animal's been and what temperature and how many movements per hour it was using. This was the very first one, so it's very bulky, very heavy, but it was very efficient. Through time though, the GPS collar has evolved. It's now maybe a quarter of the weight that it once was.